So welcome to another episode of Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat with me, Ged Mills and Hayley Kay, and another great episode in store.
Absolutely. We're going to call this one our Panto special because we completely understand at the Grand Theatre what a special time of year Panto time is. Not even Christmas time, it's Panto time. And what a history of Panto they have. And to continue that proud history, we are joined by this year's cast. I'm going to say old and new. I hope you don't mind. We're joined.
Hayley!
Wow.
Set off on the wrong foot there.
I am both old and new.
Yeah.
I will take it on the chin.
I'm old, but I've got new shoes.
Oh.
So that's as much as I can offer on the new department.
So I will introduce everyone. We have got the lovely Steve Royle. We're also joined. He's the old.
You've gone big there with lovely Steve Royle. I'm waiting for the next description there.
And the newest member, the lovely Hayley Tamadomm. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat. And joining us virtually, we have got the Pantomime's Executive Director, Anthony Williams. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yay! We did it.
Well, let's start then with the old. This is our new thing. Steve, listen, great to be back. Yeah. It's home for you, isn't it? And I mean, just so many memories of Panto for you. And does it just keep getting better? And I suppose now, especially after the COVID break, do you appreciate it more?
Do you know what I was really surprised with during the COVID? Because I think technically the Panto we just did was during COVID, because everyone was wearing masks, and I really thought the masks were implemented, I think, about 2 or 3 days into the Snow White that we just did last year, and I was surprised at how little impact. I was really worried about it. I genuinely thought you just go, that kind of response we're going to get, but it never worked. In actual fact, whether people laugh more when they got a mask on, I don't know. But every single audience, I think it's been true in most performances I've done since going back from COVID. People are so much more appreciative. I'm waiting for that really bad gig.
Yeah.
You know, the ones where they just, there's silence. I do a couple of gags. I try changing tack and doing.
And is that else for you when you'll go, pandemic's over?
Exactly. Exactly. At that point, I go, thank goodness we're back to normal. I'm doing a cruise ship this week, so yeah, quite possibly that's the one. This week could well see the end of the pandemic for me.
Now, Hayley, we did call you new, but you're not new to Panto and you're not new to Blackpool, but you're new to the Blackpool Grand Theatre Panto this Christmas playing The Good Fairy. So, welcome to
Thank
the family.
you.
Welcome to the family.
I'm so excited because I've wanted to do Blackpool Panto for my whole career of doing pantos. And to be asked is just absolutely amazing. And to do it with this chap who I've wanted to work with for so long. We've known each other for quite a long time, haven't we? Yeah. Never been able to work together, and now we've got our chance, and I'm so chuffed. And it means I get to be at home for Christmas.
And that's a massive thing, isn't it? Like you say, you've got a new baby, and that must be hard with you traveling around. You know, that's part of the job, though. But to get that call to say, Blackpool, it just must make the whole thing easier as well.
Just a dream come true. It means I don't have to be away from my little boy, you know, and I can be with my whole family every day over Christmas. And usually I'm away miles and miles away. And that is really, really tough, especially when you've got family and children. So, yeah, I'm just thrilled. Honestly, I'm really thrilled.
You know what you need to do? You need to check with that baby monitor works from theatre to yours.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you don't even need to get a babysitter.
Yeah,
well, I don't condone that. I'm a comedian. These are jokes.
Now, I know Anthony is with us, executive director. Now, am I right in thinking, Anthony? Correct me if I'm wrong, but does that mean that you direct lots of pantos that people will see across the country?
Yeah. This year, I think it's 12. I look after, for UK productions, I look after the artistic elements of all their pantomimes. So I exec direct all of them.
I mean, that is some undertaking. Just give our listeners and our viewers a bit of an insight into what that must be like for you, because I can only think of it from doing one panto, and that's complicated enough. But to try and have your head in 12, what's that like?
Oh, well, basically we go on the road beginning of November, and I get home for Christmas Day, and that's it. and just constantly on the phone, constantly in rehearsal rooms, constantly checking rehearsals, going to tech rehearsals. It's not as bad as you think, because we might be, for instance, do 4 Aladdins, 3 Peter Pans. So because we have the same titles, I know what I require from each of the shows. And the Blackpool, I mean, that's really, I mean, I shouldn't say it, but it is my favorite.
No, it's on record now. So there you
What's
go.
his favourite?
Which is consistently the best of all those pantomimes.
Once we get rid of Steve Royle, we're on a win.
I worked with Anthony last year. He was my director for Panto in Royle last year, and I love Anthony, and he is honestly one of the best directors. You know, when you find somebody that is just brilliant at their job. And this man eats, sleeps, and breathes theatre and panto, and it was a joy to work with you last year, and I'm so thrilled I get to do it again.
Oh, we're delighted to have you back. We were thrilled, Hayley.
I know. I can't wait to see you.
But he loves comedy as well, don't you, Anthony? You like the laughs as well.
Yes, comedy.
You prioritise the laughs, and I always like that.
It's got to be about the comedy. I think the hardest thing about pantomime is stopping it becoming too self-indulgent, keeping the story alive, because the kids love a story, but it's the comedy. It's got to be the comedy. There's enough going on in the world at the moment. We need that 2.5 hours of pure laughter.
Anthony, just a quick question for you, as in how you got into it, because there's a lot of people obviously want to know about actors and stuff, but there's a lot of people that do a lot of stuff backstage. How did you get into directing?
I started off as a dancer, but I was just very bossy. So I became a dance captain. I know that's hard to believe, Steve. And then I was even bossier as a dance captain, and I got into directing. And I love it. It's what I absolutely adore. I used to enjoy performing, but I didn't enjoy performing as much as I enjoyed the creative side.
And taking it back to Sleeping Beauty this year, what can audiences expect from a show like Sleeping Beauty? Because I think people are much more familiar perhaps with your Cinderellas and your Peter Pans. Sleeping Beauty, I think I'm right in saying, has been played less often in Blackpool, but what can audiences expect this Christmas?
Well, I think it's more of an adventure title, because there's a heroic quest goes out there. And we're doing some new tweaks to the script this year, and we're going to make it slightly different. We're going to bring it a bit more up to date as well. But it's going to be a very exciting adventure and very lavish.
Ooh, that sounds great.
Does this twist consist of the comic character getting to kiss the Sleeping Beauty away this time? That'd be a nice twist, wouldn't it?
Well, in your dreams.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? No,
is the comic character gets sent
consensually, obviously.
In scene 2. Yeah.
Hayley, you were saying that you've obviously done many of these. You've obviously done lots of acting roles. What is different between Panto and the team around Panto and the team around a soap, for example? And what is the whole difference between all that?
Well, if you compare Panto to, let's say, a normal musical that you would go in to rehearse, really, a Panto is the same. It is a musical, really. It's an extravaganza, a big spectacle show, but we have a week to rehearse it. And then you go into a musical and you have 4 or 5 weeks to rehearse a musical. But really, we're putting the same amount of effort into doing a Panto in just such a short space of time. And then there's not just the cast, you've got the crew, the wardrobe, the people that are doing the fly-in, and you've got people like Anthony, you've got the creative team is huge. The costumes are spectacular. So every department has their own thing to do in such a short amount of time, and it's hard work. But you know what? I love it because it's fast, and that is where you get the same thing with TV. If you're in Corrie or Emmerdale, the pace is quick. You get your script on a Thursday and you perform it on a Monday.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's like you get a weekend to read maybe 10 to 14 scripts, and then the following week you perform that. You do it. And there's no big rehearsal period. You're straight in and you can film up to 14 scenes a day. So I love that pace of life. I am quick. I love learning things quick, and I love just getting it on and doing it. I'm a kind of go-getter type of person.
yeah.
Unlike Steve, it takes him about 4 months to learn his script. He asks for his in July to have it learned by Christmas.
What a lot of people think about Steve is we only like get him out at around December time, and then we put him back in his box. Get him,
I'm just holding
hibernation.
I'm just holding a box at the rear of the theatre, unlocked.
Get him out. November. Unlock the comedy, but tips on learning a script like that, because I have to say, right, there's sometimes and someone's gone, right, you just say this to camera. I'm like, yeah, no worries, we got an auto cue or something like that, because I don't know, the concentration, the learning, and it's not, you can't do it as if you're reading it, obviously. So just tips on for people watching that maybe go, how do I get better at learning my lines?
For me, it's all about if you read a line, a sentence, one of your lines, read it 3 times over, then move on to your next one. So you say it out loud 3 times, you know, today I'm going to the shops and I'm going to buy bananas. Today I'm going to the shops and I'm going to buy bananas today. And you say that 3 times, then keep reading. That's how I kind of learn it. And I match the last word of one sentence to the first word of my next sentence.
Oh, that's a good tip.
So if I forget a line and I keep forgetting it, and I say, I'm going to the shop today and I'm going to buy bananas, and my next line is, Prince Charming loves bananas, I'll match bananas with Prince.
Okay.
So in my head, I go, banana Prince, which is really weird.
But it works.
That's how I remember things. And I have a bit of a photographic memory a little bit. I can read something once.
Oh, I hate you now.
Learn
But too talented.
No, I don't mean that in that.
Should just do it. I don't make it up.
I'm going.
But you know the worst
confusion on everyone else's faces.
The worst thing about doing soap is that you end up learning how to paraphrase because you learn so fast, and that's not a good thing to do as an actor, really. And I've had to teach myself to get out of that. And I end up doing what you've just said. You go into panto, and I can easily forget an entire page, but make the whole thing up. So I can still give you your cue line at the end, but I've made up the whole thing.
Hayley, I've just got to tell you, Steve does that every year.
You'll be fine with that.
Don't worry, darling. Don't worry.
Yeah, I do go off at tangents quite often, I have to say. I do try and get it back on track.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Steve, is that, you know, people who go to the Grand Theatre regularly that see you, do what you do, how do you refresh it? And because I have to say, as a colleague working with you, bringing my own little boy to the theatre, it always feels fresh. So how do you even go about doing that?
I think first and foremost, like Hayley mentioned before, is about the teamwork involved. Yeah. You got to remember what keeps it fresh for me is working with new people.
Yeah.
And I've always said the beauty of pantomime, I know Ken Dodd used to always go on about this, is you're working with people that in disciplines that are unfamiliar to me. Even having done so many pantomimes, choreography, I always struggle with the choreography. I've always struggled with that. Do you know what I mean? I love the fact that I actually get to, because I'm local, I'll say a lot, but I'm in Chorley. I'm only 35 minutes drive from the dance studios where the kids rehearse. So I like the fact that I can go and rehearse with the kids 2 months in advance of the band. I like to have that all done and dusted. But like you say, what keeps it fresh is working with new people and even though you say I'm a veteran, an old guy who's done this for many, many years, I can still learn. I still like to learn off other people.
You should never lose that quality, though. You know, that's a wonderful quality to have. I think that's what.
Yeah, because I don't think. Yeah, I think
you never stop learning.
Well, I know in my own head, right, that about 10 years ago, if you'd asked me, I'm at my A game here in terms of comedy. I'm doing stand-up comedy all over the country. I'm doing really well. And I look back at that guy 10 years on and I go, I've come on so much. And I can only assume that continues until the day I die. You don't think you can ever say you're going to just suddenly start to deteriorate.
Who's the one person? So who's the one person that you can, or maybe a few, you've got a few that you've worked with, might not be panto, but you've worked with and gone, I mean, they've really impressed me and I've taken so much away. Maybe what was that?
I suppose those are the ones who've introduced me to new disciplines. Immediately, Dan Whiston springs to mind, who you danced with, because that year, me and Dan, and this is when I first met Anthony, funnily enough, wasn't it, Anthony? We between the three of us, three of us choreographed. Anthony choreographed. We basically did the bolero.
Yeah.
But we obviously had to make it funny. But to do that, I couldn't even skate, right? And so Dan, bless him, because there was no contractual obligation for him to do that. We worked for 3 months. So again, this goes back to when you're working with people who love the medium of pantomime as well, it makes it so much easier because you can phone them up in September and say, hey, we get together. It's only about 3 months before we start rehearsing. Should we get? So we're rehearsing every 2-3 times a week, rehearsing, so I could be at least proficient on some skates before we then start to work on the choreography with Anthony. And so yeah, he's the first one who springs to mind.
See, one of the things I wanted to ask Anthony then essentially was, from your point of view as an executive director, how challenging is it then to work with people from completely different disciplines? Like you say, skater, I'm a radio person. How difficult is it then to get all those people with all their different skills and put them into a cohesive, brilliant production? How challenging is that?
I mean, that's a brilliant question. And I think Steve really has answered it. I think if people are committed to the project, it doesn't matter what field they come from, whether they come from a broadcasting field, a musical theatre field, a stand-up comedy, if they're committed to the project, you tend to find they will work very hard. And really, all you want in a rehearsal room are people who are prepared to work. And if you've got that, you're 99% of the way there. And I think the great thing about the casts we've had in Blackpool, and indeed all our pantomimes for UK productions, Martin Dodd, the producer of the pantomimes, is very good at selecting people who want to do this, who don't just think it's an easy gig for over Christmas, because pantomime is certainly not an easy gig over Christmas. And I think when people are committed to to pantomime, then you're going to have a great show.
I think what you're saying then is the skill essentially is to make it look like it's easy, to make it look like we're all having a fun time and this has been thrown.
It's like when we worked with you, Hayley. It's just having somebody, and if you're sensible as a director, you'll utilize and shine a light on the individual's skills as well. And you'll bring those skills into the story. And then you've got a win-win situation.
Is Hayley a dream cast for you? Because she's not only obviously a star in her own right, but she's from Blackpool. So, to hit the Blackpool Panto and have that name anyway, is she sort of, we've nailed it here? Is that?
Oh, absolutely. And again, Hayley she's a worker. I mean, last year in pantomime, it was a tough old slog. And every time I came, she was on it. She knew her stuff. She was ready to go. And yeah, so I think to have someone like Hayley with such a great profile, who's a Blackpool girl, starring in our Blackpool pantomime, that's a win-win situation. That's great. We're thrilled.
Let's not forget the versatility of Hayley as well.
That's
you've done it all, haven't you?
Yeah.
Everything, the singing, the dancing, even ice skating.
Yeah, what is your background as in a kid? As in, were you the triple threat? Did you do the drama? Did you do the dancing? Did you do the singing? Did you do it all?
I think the first time I stepped foot on the Grand Theatre stage, I was 3.
Wow.
And I did every kid panto that there was here. I performed from being, 3 years old.
I'm only going to interrupt because I've known Hayley a really long time, since we were teenagers, but Hayley was one of those people that knew what she wanted to do. She was focused. I'm going to say it, as a teenager, you were focused.
Yeah.
Like this was what I was a bit more wishy-washy. I was a bit more, I like to have fun, but you were super focused. And I think that's what sets people apart from where they end up in life or in whatever careers they choose.
Yeah, I always knew what I wanted to do. At 11, I asked my mum to send me to Sylvia Young Stage School and she flat out refused. You're 11. I was like, but I know this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I even sent for the prospectus myself and it arrived through the post and my mum was gobsmacked. She said, if you still want to do this at 16, we'll talk about college, drama college. And I knew it never changed, And like what you were saying before, you never, ever stop learning in this industry. And you have to be what me and Anthony call old school. Anthony's old school. I'm old school. And what it means is there's just a place you came from, a background where you were disciplined in this business, where you don't drop your costume on the floor, where you know how to speak to a director. There's an etiquette, you know, and you learn that from being a child, and then you turn into an adult, and then you see the younger ones dropping the costume on the floor, and I'm like, listen to Nana, listen now, we don't drop our costume on the floor. And then it's about you molding the younger generation, because this industry is not about the older people, me, Steve, you know, being it's not about us being bitter and jealous of the younger generation. It is about us giving them what we never had so they make it, because there has to be the next generation of actor or singer or dancer. And I love that. So every time I do a panto or a musical, I always have a weekly acting lesson in my room for anyone that wants to do it, so they can learn TV acting, or they can learn, you know, whatever they want to learn, they can ask me, because we have to mold that younger generation to come up rising. Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say, so before anyone else suggests it, I know I'm old, but when you were 3-year-old on that grand stage, it wasn't in one of my song sheets, was it? just checking.
It probably was.
Just checking. I just want to double. I'm not that old.
No. I mean, Hayley was saying about she's old school. You're new school. I've seen some of your contemporary dance that you have done on some of these stages. So very, very.
What I would say though, Hayley, is I think because of your attitude to being so disciplined, it stood you in good stead for all kinds of things, because you've had a really varied career. I mean, winning Dance on Ice when you did, in the way you did, surely that's testament to just being able to just give whatever you're given to do your absolute all.
Yeah, but I'm really competitive. Like, if you set me a challenge, I've got to do it. Like,
brilliant.
You know, I have to be able to do it. And I'm a bit hard on myself. If I can't do it in 3 takes or 3 times, I'm so angry with myself for it. And that's not always a healthy way to be, but the competitive streak in me, I've had since I was a kid. So if you say you need to learn how to ice skate in 3 months, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And the thing is, I wasn't the best skater. I personally think there were other people that were better than me and still are better than me at the skating. I think me and Dan, we had something special. We were best friends from being children. We grew up in Blackpool together. We already had this connection. And to be put together to do Dancing on Ice was a dream for us. It really was. So we had that, you know. But yeah, I mean, that show was just one of the highlights of my life. It really was.
Anthony talks about Blackpool being his favourite. He's put it on record so we can keep quoting that. But how sometimes is that good for you, Steve? I mean, you've been in it many years, but when you maybe get someone that knows a Blackpool audience, because, you know, we've worked in town a lot. Blackpool's a unique place. I've always said this. Some people say, yeah, but it's, you know, Blackburn and Wigan and Bury. I'm like, no. Blackpool's a unique place with unique people and unique audiences. Would that be about right?
Absolutely. And that's why it's great working with Anthony, because Anthony does recognise that. And I know there's several times where Anthony's backed me up in rehearsals, dress rehearsals, where we've had directors maybe from London or from other area, any area of the UK that's not familiar with the Blackpool audience. And I'll say, I'm going to say this, whatever it might be. And they're going, oh, no, I don't think. And I've had lines cut in rehearsal because the director didn't think it would work. And then I usually have a sneaky chat with Anthony or Martin Dodd, the producer, say, look, can I just put it in just tonight to see? And usually it works just because, I mean, if I have gained one thing of doing 18 pantomimes here, it's that I do know what the Blackpool audience like and what does work. Because you can play with them more. Yeah. And a lot of audiences, do you know what I mean? Yeah. They're more open to self-criticism. You can tease people. You can, if someone walks in late, you can have a go at them. They're not going to bother.
But what I'll say about a Blackpool audience from being an audience member and performing is that when you live in Blackpool, you are spoilt with the shows that come to the Grand and other theatres. You are spoilt. You get world-class shows here all the time. You get plays, you get ballets. So I think the audience in Blackpool is spoiled in a way that they have all this choice. And I think they've got really high standards and they expect an awful lot of the performers on stage. But like you say, because they are so good, they'll go with you. Yeah. They trust you to go along with whatever you're going to throw at them.
It is in the blood of the people, like you say, as well, isn't it? Because they've grown up. You don't have to walk down the prom, and you can watch shows through hotel windows.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
There
yeah.
are variety.
You write your own
acts on-
sitcom in Blackpool.
and back in the day, it must have been just crazy. I always say I was born in the wrong era. If I'd been born 50 years earlier, every single night we'd just walk from one hotel to the next. Let's be honest, there's not as many variety acts here anymore.
Well, that's what it was like when I was a kid, because my dad ran 4 big hotels. I'm not that old. I am near that, but I'm not that old. But yeah, as a child, I grew up in the hotels watching Les Dawson, Keith Harris, all the big variety acts that were all performing at my dad's hotel. The Nolans. I'm from that era where I got to sit every night and watch a different cabaret act of proper.
And maybe that's where you were saying about just that etiquette, where you saw them one week they were in the hotel where your dad was working.
Yeah.
The next week they're at the Palladium doing a variety show,
Exactly.
in front of the Queen or whatever.
Yeah.
There has to be that. Well, we're doing a show. We're professionally. Don't know what audience we are.
Yeah.
This is the act, and you've got to turn your hand to that.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
I think I'm so happy I'm from Blackpool, because I've had a really grounded life where me and Hayley were kids. We'd finish work and we'd go on the pleasure beach for an hour, and we'd go and get we had the best childhood living here. And being raised by the family I've got as well, I have been grounded, so I can never get above my station because my mum will always bring me down a peg or two.
I wanted to ask you, are people surprised when they find out you're from Blackpool?
Yeah, I think everybody knows now, really.
Yeah.
But
Maybe Blackpool people are surprised you're from Blackpool.
I think when people see, because I've moved back here now,
Yeah.
I live here
Yeah.
now. So when people see me, they look at me and go, I know you.
Yeah.
Did I go to school with you?
Yeah.
I was in the gym the other day and a guy went, "It's Aaron, it's me, we went to school together." I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So yeah, I'm expecting that at the stage door of Panto this year. I'm going to get faced with probably, the boys that I never got to date because I had a tash and a monobrow till I was 14. Nobody wanted to date me, but they'll all be at Panto, won't they?
Anthony, we're just going back to that point where, Blackpool audiences and maybe ad-libbing some of the lines as well. And like, obviously, Steve was saying that he knows his audience. How easy is that for you? How hard is that for you sometimes to, you have to make those decisions. When Steve comes to you and says, I want to put this in, I think it's right. And again, you do lots around the country. How easy or hard is that of a decision of yours?
Yeah, I think you've got to gauge the town and you've got to gauge the performer. And I'd be foolish as a director not to give something a go, because soon as I get to the stage where I think what I know is the absolute, that's it. I know everything. No, you don't do that. Then I'm not right for the job. You've got to be able to explore and look at things. And like the other guys, I'm a Northerner, and the Blackpool audiences are special because they will forgive and go with a lot. That you can do a lot more tryouts in Blackpool than probably anywhere else. The audience are so good. So at the end of the day, I have to make the call, but I usually make the call after I've seen it in performance.
Yeah, and it's difficult that. I mean, I wouldn't like to manage. Steve. Not to
My manager doesn't like managing me.
Can I just say, Steve is actually incredibly easy to manage because Steve loves pantomime and he loves the Grand. So he will never do anything to jeopardize that. So actually, Steve is what you've got to manage with Steve is the constant ideas that flood from him, which are brilliant, but you've got to try and manage them. You've got to sort of go, okay, we're locking this down now. No more ideas. We need to move on.
Try living with that brain. It's crazy. I just want to eat this plant.
I was just going to say, I could honestly talk Panto with you guys all day. And I definitely think the Grand Theatre audiences this Christmas are in for a brilliant, brilliant show. I think they really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, it's been great having you. Anthony, great. Thanks so much for joining us. And good luck with all the shows that you do. Really good to chat to you. And Hayley Tamadomm and Steve Royle, been brilliant to have you in. Thank you so much. Yes. And good luck with Christmas. And we can put you back in your box now.
Thanks. Yeah. I'll go straight back in. This is a rare bit of sunlight. What a pleasant day.
Thanks for joining us on Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat.
Like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode.